here to talk about mainframe trends. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's shifting, what's holding steady, and what are some things that you can take away, some actionable for strategy. What are the things you can call leadership, and a few of the gauges on how are you pacing? If you worry, you're behind, you're worried, you're ahead, or you're not investing in the right places. We're hopefully going to answer a few of those without diving too deep, because again, we're on day 3 or 4 chair. So it's a decision support session, basically. This survey was sponsored by these great companies, and they're also on that slide. So if you flip it over, or the handout, if you flip it over, you will see our great partners who helped put together this survey. Our respondent profile. So 92 validated responses. We got a whole lot more responses, but this was a really hard survey for us this year from the perspective of what we wanted to ask, which resulted in something that took 30 minutes to complete. So when we validated our responses, we looked for quick jump responses and had to knock them out. And at the end of the day, the 92 validated responses pretty much matches what we've seen year over year in validated responses. So we're really confident about that number of people. Mostly in North America and Europe, it aligns frankly to the bulk of who responds or who interacts with Planet Mainframe. All the usual suspects: financial services, insurance, government, tech. And then we did a year-over-year comparison when we could. We do like to keep up with trends and change the survey every year to reflect new things we want to know. And thus our baselines get a little, our year-over-year comparison baselines get a little messed up. But for the most part, in the full survey, you can see we've got at least good 3 years on a lot of data points. There's some kind of, I'll say, squiggly lines where job roles have kind of changed and you try to move some stuff around, but in the full report, there's a lot of year-over-year comparison, and we think it's valid because it trended the way you might expect it to. So our big pattern, the big overall thing that this report revealed, kind of like the mainframe itself, the core is stable. So everything you think you're going to run on the mainframe, you're running on the mainframe. Revenue concentration remains really high still. Revenue and use concentration is high. But we're saying the edges are under pressure. So all of these little elements, all the exciting buzzy sessions that you see and want to participate in, that's what's really causing the pressure on mainframe. So we'll talk more about hybrid complexity, observability, workforce bandwidth, and AI integration, and how those play in this. But I think it's of no surprise that the elements that are stable within the mainframe. Maybe a few things in here that are surprising, but for the most part, I wasn't overly concerned with this. But under pressure, let's talk about. So we're also going to kind of explore how this integration complexity is just affecting a lot of other things. So first of all, business dependence and centrality. Again, this is kind of okay, are people still using the mainframe? And like absolutely, 100% yes. If you look, we're well over 78% are saying that their business revenue, either revenue or transactions, is totally dependent on the mainframe. It's how they're making money. Workload environments describe systems as mission essential. And we're not seeing hybrid diversification impact the use of mainframe. It's one of the things last year that was a key finding of ours that was surprising. So we saw like the hybrid numbers just start to go crazy last year. And you'd kind of expect as hybrid gets bigger, mainframe is going to get smaller, but we're not seeing that at all. We're seeing them both pace so nicely together. And it comes into play because of the essential role of every piece of the puzzle, mainframe and the hybrid story. So with that, we know all the different jobs that are happening, and modernization strategies, with this level of dependence on the mainframe, you've got to be really careful about what your modernization strategies look like. And that's an important takeaway. And then if you ever get, curious as to am I spending too much on the mainframe, they have 78% of your 50% of business revenue depends on mainframe, or 75% of the business revenue comes. So then you could say that 50% of your IT budget, or 75% of your IT budget needs to be on mainframe and mainframe tooling, which includes workforce. So you can easily look at that and make justifications on how much should I be investing here to make sure that such a core part of our revenue stays working well, stays up to date. So we've got all of these things. Like I said, they're still anchored in Z, and that we really, took away from this that the revenue concentration being so heavily means that you've got to dictate, you've got to be very intentional about your modernization, and you've got to recognize where to invest based on your revenues. It's all pretty simple, right? But I think we're building a story, though, what we tell people, and they're like, the mainframe is, we got to start doing some different stuff. So I wanted to talk next about platform currency and upgrade cadence. So platform currency in this case refers to what you're currently running. I guess with the announcement of 617 last year, I guess personally, it's like there's a lot of buzz. I would expect it. A lot of pickup on it, right? Not the case. Very low numbers of pickup, I'd say. What is it? It's like 50% or something of our respondents. On ZOS, the 34% are current, 40% are on previous, and then from there, much lower numbers. So most people are within the past two releases, and this was actually, we saw this in DB2, we saw this in a lot of other areas. So there are no significant legacy versions reported really, and very low numbers. I think it's actually stayed pretty stable for 3 years. The number that made to decommission, it's more of a long range plan, and I think less than 5% of people said it was a plan to decommission the mainframe. So what we know is that. Yes, sir.
Quick question. What are you considering current ZOS release? Because we just GA 3.2, so we're.
I don't have that note in front of me. It is in the report, the actual. When did it come out?
3.2 came out in September.
So yeah, it would be 3.2 is the considered current on this.
Okay.
But it's in the report. We asked specifically was on the.
Because you call in the report, it says 3.1 is the primary ZOS release of use.
Okay.
So okay.
All right. So it's a timing issue.
Yeah, that's why I was
asking. I should have prefaced about the survey. It ran last fall, so there has been a release.
It's 3.1.
Okay, there has been a release since the launch of it. We didn't edit. We didn't want to remove this thing, right?
Thank you.
No problem. But we saw it across the board, and I think one of the things that I took away from this information is that there's not a real rush to update everything, and I don't know if y'all are noticing. Every time I say modernization, I kind of pause because. Let's say 5 years ago, the story of mainframe modernization, you can get the hell off of it, right? Like if someone was telling you needed to modernize, it meant you need to shut it down or do something different. But what we really noted, so noticeable to me in the report was the concept of modernization means taking your mainframe and making all of your mainframe modern, getting all the tooling, really making it a core component. So that's why I still pause when I hear modernization, because I just old-fashioned thinking. But what we're seeing is that there's such a conscious effort to modernization when it comes to upgrading your systems. It's all about plan strategy, not being reactive, and making those careful, controlled steps. So for application strategy for the next 3 years, core Z applications. So what's going to happen? It's a little bit of both. So we've got 31.6% said they were going to maintain all their core Z applications. 34% said they were going to look to replace them. Again, very few are decommissioning. But I think that this is, like it says, it's about refinement. It's about new tools and reality systems and finding the best thing to do the thing to be done for within the organization. So core Z applications are, for the most part, going to stick around, with some being replaced. And there's so much great stuff coming out of the industry that isn't built on mainframe. There's a lot more opportunity to plug in new different tooling.
May I have a question? Sorry, the decommission, is that decommission mainframe completely or application?
In this question, it would be application.
Okay.
So that would be a application no longer needed. Yeah. So we're seeing the selective replacement, not a big broad exit happening. And if you look at it again, it's a story of stability and refinement. Like it is all about managed portfolio evolution, really. Regarding the workforce, we did an article back in January reflecting on a lot of this stuff. Some really, I thought, interesting notes. This is not going to be a surprise to you in the room because you probably wear so many hats in your job. But what we saw, we did see a little bit of shift to respondents, and I kind of saw it on the trade show floor, the SU floor. We had a pretty big shift of newer in mainframe. I want to say like not as long in mainframe.
Early tenure.
Early, but so they're mid tenure. We have
Mid-tenure,
we had a
mid-tenure,
shift
yeah.
from
New to Z.
yes. So we'll call them new to Z, mid tenure. Y'all have been in mainframe for a very long time. Like those would be our 3 block spots. We had we just seen a shift, and I think it is reflected here, and it's great. So mid-career professionals really coming in and mid-career, mid-mainframe career. Multi-role responsibility. The number is, so 30% reported that they have 2 or more roles within their organization. So we had a whole list and it was pick your role. And we let people pick as many roles as they wanted. And 30% picked 2 or more. I mean, some people picked 5, and I don't know when they vacation. Most commonly, now this wasn't too surprising, but most commonly, sysprogs have security roles. Like they're one and the same. The DBAs have performance roles, right? Makes sense. DevOps and platform engineers these are the most common combinations. So we're seeing this multi-role person come into play in the workforce, which corresponds with the fact we've always seen data that teams are getting smaller. So what would you do? Well, if you can't hire the 30 people you need for that certain thing, you're going to have to make sure that the 10 people on it each have 3 jobs that they know how to do well. So we are seeing role consolidation. We're seeing broad responsibility happening. We're seeing very measured onboarding. And, in general, the workforce isn't disappearing. It's starting to compress. Operational enablement. Quick things we saw, stable staffing is good. That measured hardware, software growth. A lot of use of rules-based automation. Selective phased tool adoption. Priorities, responsiveness, platform engineering, cost optimization. We're doing a whole editorial month at Planet Mainframe on cost and cost optimization, just because, let's face it, everyone needs. What do you need to do? You need to lower your costs. You need to manage your expenses. So that's a big focus area for us this year. But we are seeing, though, that because we're not scaling through headcount, we're seeing a lot more automation, a lot more observability and need for observability. and a lot more process discipline. And, I don't want to say the word AI yet, but I said it. I think we're going to see that, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but like that's a big part of this is how can we get more done with less. So hybrid architecture, like I already said, we saw it last year. It's such a big component. People aren't as afraid anymore. Security is better. I don't want to have a slide on it, but I'm going to go and tell the. Actually, I didn't put a slide in it. Good. So what we saw in security is that it's really matured. For a lot of organizations, the MFA number is still very low, which is kind of a crazy. If I can't get into like a simple, Facebook app without MFA, I'm surprised the mainframe doesn't have it turned on. But like, okay. But with security being more mature, there's very few isolated environments, and this hybrid model is just so commonplace and working well for everyone. And I've seen companies, and talked to one the other day, that very consciously moving things to cloud because they know that that's the better place for that application to sit. Complexity lives at our integration boundaries. So the challenge with hybrid, mostly you see observability and performance monitoring. Like I've got all these things everywhere, but then I have all my observability, all my different performance tools live everywhere. If I want this report, I've got to go to this. If I want this, I've got to go to this. We're still not in a great place of central reporting. And with that, governance complexity is rising, and I'm very sorry if you are in a highly regulated industry where you've got to manage how all of the different elements are working in the system. So, but it is, all in all, the friction point isn't the migration, it's the visibility, it's the observability and how you can manage everything. A report it's a decrease in incidents. So again, security is embedded, it's stable. MFA at only 20%. I just thought that would be higher. Does anyone else agree that? I've heard it's a pain in the butt to turn on sometimes. Okay, good one, head not to that one. Okay. But risk is there's less fear of incidents. You've got at least some things in place, so there's less fear of incidents. Overall economics investment cost is a constraint. Spend growth is very measured. Cost effectiveness is tight. There's no economic issues that we've seen so far in our data. The investment is there, and actually there's no big desire to spend more. Obviously, and there's probably not one budget to spend more, but it's there. And probably where you're getting the most budget allocation are the fun new tools and AI. I imagine that's a big topic of conversation. So AI. I'm a little surprised by this minor impact percentage, 49% expect a minor impact, unless they're saying from the perspective of no impact to great impact. That's the scale. And sure, minor impact in AI expansion. 8% do expect a major change, and with observability being an issue, anomaly detection, security monitoring, and those being two of the top use cases makes a lot of sense. Public cloud being the most execution-oriented for use case for expansion. So, I haven't talked to a lot of the companies here today that are talking about AI tooling over mainframe, but I can tell you just in 6 months from the last year, there's 3 times more companies here talking about it. So, this is just, it's going and going and going, it's even bigger, and we're seeing some really cool things through expansion of AI. So,
in your responses, and any information that people commented that perhaps AI is still is a solution in search of problems?
we didn't get any open commentary to that effect. I think, I had to guess the solution in search problems is a kind of a top level AI is a sexy, fun thing. We need AI. then you're looking for a reason to have it. I mean, that's what I would intuitively think on it, but no, we didn't get any over the commentary. Sounds like we should talk later. You might get some fun students. So the 5 signals, you have this handout and you don't have more. So we still know revenue concentrates on Z. It has a lot of where modernization is a governed, controlled, thoughtful process. You know what you're doing, making plans, no one's scared or worried. Security is stable. There's not a lot of fear there. Higher complexity, adding more, all this added importance is creating issues that you're seeing today. And then we'll see AI refining your work and not fixing it. So these are some things you can take back. These questions related to the questions that you're evaluating. Are we making the right investments where our systems matter? Is modernization for us sequenced or reactive? Are we constantly troubleshooting, or are we more thoughtful about when we want to make upgrades or changes? Are we investing enough in observability? Are we running ourselves ragged, trying to find all the data in all of the places? How can we fix that? Is AI aligned with integration governance? And are we modernizing or expecting our headcount to take on a 5th and 6th role in order to get things done? So, just want to close by saying the platform's not going anywhere. It's 74 audience. We're here. We know everything that relies on the mainframe, and now we're just evolving these systems and really focusing on the modernization of our mainframe, not mainframe modernization.